All right, we are live. And on today's episode, alongside co-host Bianca Leger, we interview a former squad leader in the U.S. Army who's now a body architect and fitness coach based out of Miami Beach, where he leads group fitness classes and one-on-one training sessions based out of Primal Fit Miami. Using bodyweight exercises and barbells, along with unique tools like the steel mace and the steel club, his training methodology is built on 4 pillars: strength, conditioning, power, and mobility. He's a self-proclaimed freedom advocate. He's also passionate about firearms, fiscal responsibility, and crypto. Welcome to the winner circle, Grant Weeditz.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me today. It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
Likewise, Grant. And as we were talking about the start of our conversation prior to hitting record, the goal of this podcast is really to uplift, inspire, and empower all those listening along to have greater faith and belief in themselves on their journey ahead, and to set up this positive vibe, to sink in. We'll have a very positive question, and that is, Grant, right here, right now, what do you love about your world at this moment? Not the world, the external world, but your world.
Oh, it's an easy one. So right now, that's easy because I left my job of 7 years at this gym called Anatomy here in Miami Beach, which I loved, and I love to this day. But I left that job in September of 2021. So it's been just a little over 6-8 months. And I left that because I was pursuing something. I didn't know exactly what, but I was pursuing what I come to find is freedom. Like I wanted to get away from a confinement. I was in 4 walls, beautiful walls. It's like the very high end, nice gym, all the amenities you can imagine, but you're still even the physical confinement, and then also you're an employer or employee, and there's certain restrictions that come with that. So these last few months, it's been an adventure. Luckily, I've for myself, I've set up clientele over the last 7 years, and I didn't set it up purposely, but it's just you develop relationships, and wherever you are, whatever point in life you are, physical location, you develop relationships and a reputation, whether it's a good or a bad reputation, you develop one. So my time at that last employer helped me establish who I am in this town in Miami. And that's led me to taking off just private fitness. It's one-on-one, essentially, mostly one-on-one training. And I'll get into some other things that I'm doing too, but that's my day-to-day is, I would say, between 4 and at the most maybe 8 training sessions, which was what I was doing at Anatomy. I was training between, I would say, 6 and maybe 10 at the most sessions at Anatomy, where everybody's coming to me. I'm in one physical location and everybody comes to me, which is super convenient, but also it's like, feels like conveyor belts. Okay, who's next? Who's next? What's next? What's next? And it became like, okay, I'm going to go in at this time, I'm going to leave at this time, and like clock in, clock out, like a lot of jobs and the rat race scenario some people find themselves in when they're working corporate world and things like that. It was a very not corporate job in certain ways, but in other ways it became, and it sort of started to feel like that over the course of my journey over the 7 years. So yeah, the last few months have been just a wild ride of just being able to, it's not wild, it's actually less wild. It's not a lot more tame than I thought it would be, because people fell into place. They reached out to me. They heard that I'm training people outside of a gym they don't have to get a membership to anymore, and they reached out to me, and things worked out. Doesn't always happen that way, and things they ebb and they flow throughout the year with clientele and business, but generally things have been looking up, and it's only been a straight line up for me in this particular part of my journey. But there was a lot of build up and a lot of like things that had to fall into place for me to get to where I am right now. So I'm in a comfortable place, and I'll say comfortable in a positive way. And I know because it can be negative too, but I'm in a good place right now and I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
I love
well,
that.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That leap of faith, and it pays off. It really does when you step into that unknown.
That's what it took. And it was like one of those things where you, of course, right after it, you feel good after you've left. That's like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, what took me so long? And it wasn't COVID. It wasn't the COVID stuff that pushed me into it really. Like, yeah, looking back, I could have done it before then. But there's just a few events that took place over the course of the quarantine / like restriction period, and even political, like looking at bigger, broader events and going on in the world. Like, I just want the freedom to not be tied to somebody else's pursuits, which helped me learn when I did it, when I was working for somebody. You're helping them get to their dream. And they, in turn, they teach you things and you learn from working for them. But at some point, there's a diminishing returns with what you get from those situations and those employment situations. So for me, that was the time. 7 years was it. And I've moved on since. Love Anatomy, love Mark Megna, who runs it, who's the owner operator of 3 or now I think 4 locations in this area. And they're doing great things, but just, it was just, I just outgrew it, not in a superficial type of way, or like I'm better than that. It just wasn't serving me anymore.
An evolution needed to take place. And I feel that that calling to step into your own space rather than that feeling of containment built up over time, and you had that gut feeling, but then you finally had courage just to step in, do it, and make it happen. Let's talk about that process. Where did fear come into this conversation, and what have you learned about fear in your journey as a fitness trainer, but not only as a fitness trainer, as a squad leader in the U.S. Army, and just as a human being in general? How have you used fear as an ally in your journey?
And I'm glad you brought that up as far as fear is concerned, because like we don't look at ourselves as being fearful people. You can be a God-fearing person, but you're not like scared of things, like you're scared of snakes or like those type of things. But fear, like, you have to put some deeper thought into what am I afraid of, and it's not something that you discuss like lightheartedly. You have to be like serious and really think deeply into it. And I've always, when I've had these thoughts, or when I've been able to think deeply with my team meetings at Anatomy, Mark would hold these meetings where all the trainers were together, and we were very, very, very private conversations just amongst the small team. We got to discuss some of these things. I remember one of these meetings I mentioned, forget why or what the question was, but the topic of fear came up. And my greatest fear, since I was in high school and when I was growing up in Chicago, was being mediocre, just being average and being just like everybody else. That was, for me, the number one thing. I would rather fail. I'd rather just suck at something and figure that out, find it out, and do something different. I would rather fail than I would just being the same old trainer, or not even training outside of fitness. I feared working at a corporate job for 30, 40 years, retiring and just doing the same thing that all my friends and their families that did. I'm an only child myself. I didn't really have an example like older brother, older sister, or anybody really to look upon. My parents, my dad was much older. He was 40 when I was born. So it was like I didn't really have. My parents got divorced early on in my childhood, like in school. So just had a lot of, not turmoil, but just different. I had a different life situation than a lot of friends of mine. But to come back to the fear part, mediocrity. That was it, to boil it down. And then if you want me to go into as far as like from my younger years in high school, and then so moving forward out of high school, 18 years old, I actually joined the Army while I was in my senior year, where they had this program called the delayed entry program. So you're actually like signing your life away before you graduate under the expectation that you get your diploma, and then you can go to training, like start your initial entry training after that. So that was like my first thing of like, I'm going to do something different, because I was afraid that all my friends are going, they already got their acceptance into X, Y, or Z university. And so did I actually. I did get accepted to Northern Illinois University, so temporarily. And I went to basic training. I went to basic training a few months after I graduated high school. I'm in the middle of basic and shooting. I actually was doing a rifle course, rifle qualification. I shot expert, which is like top tier, the company, top like 5% of the company. And I got to call my mom, and I called her and told her what I did and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, Grant, I got this letter in the mail. It says something about like, it was essentially a rejection letter after the fact, because my grades my senior year were so bad, my second semester." Okay. So I'm like calling my mom for this fun, cool thing I'm really excited about, and I get bad news in return. I'm like, okay, now what the heck? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna go back home. And I should mention I did sign up for Army Reserve, so this isn't me like going off to get stationed somewhere full time.
Yeah.
I was planning on like having either going to school or having a regular job for a little while I did like the 1 week a month, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. I'm not sure what your guys' equivalent is in Canada, but here you have the National Guard, you have the reserves for each different branch of the military. Yeah. And you can serve like it's on a part-time basis. So you get a full-time training like set up when you start, 1, 2 months, 6 months, depending on your job. And then you go back home, do your thing, whatever it is. A lot of kids to school, and that's typical. And then older adults that are in the reserves are working their regular jobs, and they have their families, and they just do the Army stuff or the Marine stuff like once a month, and then a couple of weeks in the summertime to like keep their training up. So that's what I signed up for. And so I got this message saying like, "Yo, you ain't going to the school you thought you're going to go to," basically. Yeah. So I come back home from basic training, and I got nothing to do. And I'm in the reserves, so there's something to do like 2 to 4 days a month. But other than that, I'm watching infomercials, and I'm 18, 19 years old, and I'm drinking and doing what kids that age do. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like with no direction. I had nowhere to point my energy. And I saw an infomercial on the TV, and it was for Universal Technical Institute. Have you guys ever heard of that?
No. What is that, Grant?
Okay, it's a mechanics school, like where you go for auto mechanics. Okay. So I saw this on TV. I'm like, and it was one of these national schools. It's nationwide, but there's only like 3 locations or 2 locations, and one of them was in the town that I was living in suburban Chicago. So I was like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. Perfect. So a year and a half. It's one of those schools that's like straight through. It's not like a traditional school where you have like your gen eds or things like. It's just it's a trade school essentially. So you learn how to be a mechanic, buy the tools, you get all the gear and all that. So I worked that 18 months pretty much straight through from beginning to the end. And I worked at a tires and oil type place, busting tires and getting my fingernails dirty and all that. And I did that after I graduated too. But then it was like, I look at these like 50-year-old guys I'm working next to, and they're just miserable. They're out of shape. They just look unhappy. And that's that. I bring myself back to like that mediocrity thing. Like I don't want to be like that. Mm-hmm. And if you start surround yourself with people like that, that's what you're going to become. You're like a product of your environment. At some point, sure, you're going to morph into that. Yeah. So I'm like, so I start working out again. I'm at this point, I'm like 19, 20 years old. I'm working out again. I played football in high school and baseball. I was never any good, but I was like I was an athlete that pretended to play. I played sports, but I just you can run fast and jump, but I wasn't really skillful at anything. So but I like to lift. So I got back into lifting just like, after work. And then a few years go by, 2 years go by. I think when I'm out of school, that tech school is like 2007, 20 years old. My reserve unit gets deployed to Iraq, which is a process. It's not just like you're going next week and you're in Iraq. It's like probably a 3-month buildup from training stateside in America to Kuwait for a month. And then you get to your place, your mission, whatever you're going to do in country there. So I was in Iraq from 2008. I remember it was Leap Day, February 29th, 2008 is when I hit boots on ground in Ramadi, Iraq, with a military police company. I was an engineer, so I was sort of doing some of the stuff that I was going to school for. I wasn't working on cars, but It was like hands-on stuff, building guard shacks and doing some construction and just various things like that. So that was a 9-month deployment with that unit they were from Chicago. I was in Iraq with the military police company. They were almost about to go, or we at the time were almost about to go home. I chose to voluntarily stay with another unit that was already there, that would just started their deployment. And I had a sergeant that was helping me because I couldn't do any of this paperwork stuff, but she helped include me in what she was doing too. So she was doing the same thing. She was going to extend. It was a voluntary extension. I stayed on for another, I think it was 8 months. So like 17, 18 months total, straight through. Came back for two R&R, like back home, like breaks, 2-week breaks. But other than that, it was pretty much straight through there from like I said, 2008 all the way to like May of 2009. While I was there, I applied and got accepted to Illinois State University. So I ended up following through with my college pursuits.
Yeah.
Came back, didn't have really a direction as far as like what I wanted to do specifically. But while I was overseas, luckily enough, between missions and things that are important and serious related to like the military and what we're supposed to be doing, I got to train, I got to work out, got to help my friends and guys that were in my unit that also wanted to pursue that. They may not have been in some great, it wasn't like a Navy SEAL unit. This is kind of like everyday average Joes. Like no one's like a world beater, like physical specimen over there. So it was like what you come across here in the real world, like everyday people, except they were deployed with me. So some were young, some were older. But I got a chance to influence those guys, and they were just kind of like, a lot of it was just like do what I did type stuff. I wasn't like a trainer, wasn't trying to be a trainer, but we were working out in a proper gym in Iraq together with various guys coming and going over the course of the year plus that I was there. And I decided that I wanted to go to school for exercise science. So I went to Illinois State, followed through with that after I got back in 2009, and I did my 4-year degree while there. So I completely forgot where this question started, but this was, I'm trying to chronologically work my way to where, I know fear was where it started. I'm becoming less fearful as I get confidence. I gained confidence from this experience. Luckily, I didn't get blown up. My friends didn't die. I didn't suffer from PTSD. Those are all things that people come back with. I mean, it seems like more often than not, but I was grateful enough and blessed enough not to suffer from any of those things. So when I came back, I was generally good to go. I had some alcohol issues right when I came back, and I was a freshman in college, which is like a recipe for disaster, both of those things together. But at each year from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of college, I drank less and less and increased my fitness more and more. And also just my pursuit of being a fitness professional, not just some guy that works out a lot. And this is pre-Instagram days, mostly, for the most part. I think I graduated in 2013. So most of it's like, it's genuine pursuits, not doing it for the gram.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of how the path started there towards fitness. And, I can continue and carry on the story, but that's where it started.
Yeah, no, that's a great introduction to your journey on how you got into fitness. Bianca, do you have any questions from that phase of his journey? Or I'll head on to the next section.
Well, there is something that kind of, what I'm feeling into is that these times of transition, we're scared of mediocrity. So then we get those pointers of like, oh, this is my thing right now. And we get to like focus all our attention and our energy in this. And it feels really purposeful. Would you say that most of the fear comes up in those in between periods where you're like at home, like, what the fuck am I doing right now? Like, where is my direction taking me? Is that a time where you more into that?
I would say the opposite.
Really?
I would say for me, the fear always sets in when I've been doing the same thing for too long. Okay. So it's the transition periods, I guess, that I almost live for. I live from those.
Amazing.
And it's not like I seek them out, because I'm not, at the same time, I'm not somebody who jumps from from thing to thing, like the thing of the moment, like what's the next cool thing, trendy thing. Like that's not me either. So I'm loyal to a fault when it comes to certain things, but I also, like, I'm gonna realize at some point when something's not serving me, when I'm not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just jump ship because like I'm not happy for 5 minutes. Like that's also important too. Like you have to show that you're committed to certain things. Like I wasn't as committed when in my younger years for certain things throughout high school and school. Like definitely do not apply what I'm talking about right now in my recent past to school earlier on, because I was like, what, like over here, over there, like I couldn't focus on anything for very long. There was just a lot of distractions, and you know, it's like how we all evolve with our maturity too. So I changed a lot between when I was in my like later teen years to mid 20s. And it was not just because I was in Iraq. Like that's just, I was just in a physical place. Okay, there's responsibility. You're considering things differently than if you were just like walking down the street in the US. There's different considerations. So yes, you have to grow up because of those reasons. But I wouldn't say that was like the overarching reason why I've changed necessarily. But as far as to come back to what you were saying, yeah, if I get stuck in something for too long, and when you just have to realize, is this serving me? Am I serving others too? Like, is this helping others? Like, I love training people, and I think I'm always going to train people, even if it doesn't like truly serve me anymore. Like whether it's money or whether it's I'm learning new things or like every day, because I like working with people. Like I'm not a super extrovert. I'm only extroverted when it comes to fitness and like what I do specifically in this. And you know, somebody who feels the same way is John Wolf.
Yeah.
I remember him. I specifically remember him saying that at one of the certs, maybe in 2018 in Austin, at On It, where he was like talking about his own personality and how he's like, this is not me all the time. Like normally I'm like he's like, I'm in my little space, and I'm like, he's more of an introverted person naturally, but the way that he expresses himself through fitness is very extroverted. And to an extent, I'm much the same.
So I'm curious to examine your mindset in these times of transitions. How do you have faith in these times of transitions, whether that be leaving anatomy or the transitions of being in school, kind of bouncing around, and you're joining the military? How do you have faith in these times of transitions?
I think that comes from a certain level of all in 100% commitment, which I always preached to or looked for when I was hiring new trainers at Anatomy, is somebody that like, they weren't just dipping their toe in the water. They knew they wanted to be at Anatomy for any reason, but it had to do with, I already made the decision to do the next thing, and I was already like doing it before I even started doing it. Like the military, for example, like in 8th grade, I was like, I wanted to be an Army Ranger. I didn't end up being an Army Ranger, but like I had mentally committed to it before I really knew that I was actually like confirmed to do it. So, and the same thing with school again. So yeah, I got rejected from the first school, and I had this like period where I'm like, fuck school, sucks. I don't learn anything anyway. And then I was like, no, eventually, like over the next 4 years or 3 years, I guess it was, that I needed it and I wanted to do it. But my headspace when I was 18 and getting rejected from Northern Illinois for a major that I wasn't even sure of was way different from 21-year-old Grant when I was just coming back from a deployment and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Those 3 years, it's like a lifetime of difference. Like the mindset is totally changed. And part of it, 18-year-old versus a 21-year-old, you're just going to do a lot of maturing anyways because of the time of your life. But I would say that I forgot exactly where we were in the
that's
question,
great.
but
No, that's great. And that leads me to this next question. So what advice would you give someone on the path, and they're at that crossroads? They're at that crossroads of the shoulds of society, school, parents, culture, religion, whatever, versus the must, that calling that they have in their heart, that calling, whether that to be to go to school or to go travel or to join the military or to quit their job and pursue a life of less confinement. But they're stuck, and they're stuck because of those shoulds, the things they've been told their whole lives, and even before they're born, that was instilled in their parents and the parents before them through religion, through culture, through the media. What advice would you have to that hero on stepping into the unknown?
I would say when you are stepping into the unknown, you don't have a lot of answers and you're more questions than answers, that if you find a person or people that you want to pattern yourself off of, be like, follow in the footsteps of, if you can do that and you find that, like, I like that the way this person carries themselves, I like the way this person has gotten to the place that they've gotten to, surround yourself with that person or people, and generally things will fall into place. So we all have like people ask me like, who's your role model? A lot of times in those meetings I spoke about with anatomy, those team meetings we had every week on Thursdays, for 1 hour. I have team meetings, various questions, various topics. Like a question that would come up would be something about a role model. And I never really I didn't have like in specific role models in my head, but I knew who I liked, not just personally, but like the way that their values led them into whatever they were doing, their career, their pursuits. Like I would just spend time around that person. And it's not always like that easy. You can't just be like, hey, you, I like you. I want to go hang out with you. Can I hang out with you? Like, it's just like, it's kind of weird. So you have to do it in a way that, like, for me, it was when I was overseas, I remember seeing, and I brought this up multiple times to Mark, my ex-boss, still friends today. He was on the cover of Men's Muscle and Fitness magazine. I remember reading an article with him. He wrote the article, and he was like the model that was like in it and pictured and everything. And he was like, muscle and fitness, like the, shredded, everything. He's still shredded, but like, this is 2009 Mark Megna, or 2010, whatever it was. So I remember seeing that when I was in Iraq, and I wasn't even going to school yet. But fast forward 5 years later, I was working for him, and I didn't like intend on doing it, but it just kind of, I gravitated towards somebody that I wanted to model myself after. He was a pro athlete in the NFL, didn't like win Super Bowls and play for 15 years, but he did the hard thing to make it to the pinnacle of his profession. Then he made a switch himself, a transition into fitness. First it was like fitness modeling, but then it became fitness training and personal training. And he was a manager at Equinox, and then he opened up his own thing at Anatomy in Miami Beach. And that I respected. And like I only hooked up with him and like really got connected with him personally on a personal level when he just opened Anatomy in 2014. So in between when I saw him on a cover in a magazine, and 5 years prior in 2009 or 10, and then 2014 when I took the interview with him, a lot happened there. But this drew me into the path that has put me where I am today, and I feel like I'm a successful private trainer with a great clientele and a happy place in life. It was just by surrounding myself or putting myself in the position to learn from and be around somebody that I want to pattern my life off of in various ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is a good time to transition into a conversation about the various mentors and helpers that have helped you on your journey, that have helped you on the path. And let's start with Mark. You can give us a bit of a background of Mark, but what was one of like the greatest lessons that you've learned from Mark, or just something that you admire about him that you've incorporated into your being? So let's start there, and then let's just talk about a few other notable mentors, who they are, and what are the lessons that you learned from them that you've incorporated into your being.
Now, if you go to his podcast, I'm not advertising his podcast. This is about your podcast right now. But if you go to his podcast, the Megna Method podcast on Apple or whatever, at the beginning and the intro, it says, if you want to be extraordinary, you got to do something extra. And it's like, yeah, and they play it every time the podcast plays. So it's like, okay, yeah, I got it, Mark, I got it. But there's something you can't just do the same. Like, again, going back to the mediocrity thing, you have to separate yourself. So for me, I'm not like uber talented in any specific way that I'm like aware of, that I feel like see myself, but I can commit myself to something when I really want to do it, and I will go all in. So for me to stay at anatomy 12 hours a day, for the most part, for the first few years, 2 to 3 years, I was like grinding and being physically present. I didn't even have to do a lot besides that. I was a nice person. I was welcoming to people that I met, random or a client, either way. And I'd help the other trainers, and I was more of a teammate. I was a teammate with others versus an adversary, which in a lot of training environments, unfortunately, it can become adversarial if the right culture isn't there. So those things came together, and I just feel like that was such an integral part of how Mark shaped the rest of my career since I met him back in 2014. Like, he's, if you want to be extraordinary, you got to do extra. And it's, that. So for me, that one stuck. Like, everyone's got their little cliche thing that's like that. When you asked me that, like, I wasn't thinking of that before. Like, that's what came to my head first, because it's memorable and it's very valid and applicable to all of us in every pursuit we have.
Absolutely. So who are some other mentors that have left a notable impact on your journey? Of course, you've had many. So just a few that pop to mind. And then what were their big takeaways that you learned from them?
I really don't have a ton. I was in my early years, like as a kid, younger kid, played sports. So like the role models and mentors were not mentors. Okay. I guess it was role models where you'd look up the sports figures, sports athletes. Like I was from Chicago. So I got Michael Jordan, Walter Payton was a little before my time, but Sammy Sosa, baseball with Chicago Cubs. But like these sports athletes, like those are the guys that I would like associate with it as being a role model. My dad worked a lot. My dad was not present when I was in my later like adolescent years. Mm-hmm. He was very present when I was younger, I remember, but just later on, his work schedule, he worked from 2 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. or 12 midnight. And so that's like, for a kid that's going to school, it's like I would never see him. Like, I go to sleep and he's just getting home, and I leave for school and he's there, and then when I get home from school, he's not there. So that was, my dad was great. He since passed. He passed in 2019, which led to some other pursuits and other things, a lot of things that went on with that. But that was it's a tough one when I look back and thinking about my dad, because there's a polarity between the good and the not so good. There's definitely not good parts, alcoholism. There's some other things when I was younger with him, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot of what I liked and what I definitely won't be doing with my future kids, Mm-hmm. So that's that. And then as far as role models, I first thought of, or a mentor, I had a professor in college that was the first professor that I just got to spend a good amount of time around, not just like having one class with. He was the department head of exercise science at Illinois State. And he was a mm-hmm. very kind person, very like, I connect with like jokesters, because I'm somewhat of that too. Like, so it's super serious people. Like I have clients that are super serious people, but it's just like, I don't have the same, there's the connection. So I connect well with jokesters. Yeah. And he was a jokester, but he was smart as fuck. Like he knew his stuff, but he would deliver it with like that like extra I was just talking about. Like it was like, it made you want to go to class. Like I would really look forward to classes with him. And so Dr. Dale Brown at Illinois State University, and I'll keep in touch with him, but like he's very memorable from that period of time, learning like the ins and outs of anatomy and physiology and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And then I had a client when I was at Gold's Gym in that same college town. I was working at a Gold's Gym. had a client named David Leduc, still calls me to this day. Lives in Vegas now, and he's just a regular old dude, overweight, pot belly that I helped. It was my very early years of programming since 2011. So I'm literally on Microsoft, what was a spreadsheet, like Google Sheets or one of those spreadsheet things. I wrote up like a workout template, like completely, like I use no references, no like expert template off of like bodybuilding.com. I just like took it and just started putting exercises. I was using like color shading, like the red parts are Monday, the green parts are Tuesday, and like I don't even know what I was doing. But I gave him a card of it printed out, like all the exercises and reps and sets and stuff, and he kept the card for like 10 years. And I don't know if he still has it today. I doubt he still does because he had some health issues. He's fine, but just not working out regularly. But for about 8 to 10 years after I trained him, I think it was maybe 3 times a week client for a year, let's say. And then I left I left Illinois for Miami. And I never saw him. I saw him, he actually came down to visit a couple times, and I did get to see him in person. But he took that card, and he would send me a picture of him like on the treadmill with a card sitting there. Like this is like 5 years later. And it's just like, it was, when you're young, you don't really get to be influential in other people's lives. It's usually the older person that's influential on you. So when I'm a young person and I'm being influential on a 50-year-old guy, and like that doesn't happen. Like it's a weird feeling to wrap your head around when you're younger. It's like, wait, I helped somebody out, and I was just like doing my job. And I kept helping him over the course of his time, even after I wasn't with him anymore physically. So David Leduc, and he sends me emails. He sends like a mass email out to probably 20 people, 20 of his closest friends, maybe more. But there's some like scripture stuff in there. There's some, but he's just a very thoughtful person that was always so kind and tried to help out everybody. He helped kids off the streets that were, they're growing up in the hood and they just had no direction, and he would help steer them onto the right path. A lot of football players that were in that town. So I really respected David Leduc for that. And he's somebody that like continually reached out to me when I had really nothing to offer him anymore. We weren't in the same town. We were just like catching up, saying, hey, and he would call me probably once every 6 months or a year. Actually talked to him maybe like last month. And so it doesn't seem that significant. The guy's not like changing the world, and he is. I think he is changing the world in his own way, but he's not like a big figure of doing huge things going on and like making lots of money or making big moves. But when you're making impacts on people's lives in the way that he does, even little here, little there, and just little things messages you send people, so powerful. So powerful. And that helped me be a better trainer too, because I understood that connection that gave me with him. So I made sure to pass that on to the future clients that I was to take on over the course of the time I was developing as a trainer, because training is just relationships. I don't know you guys' day to day. Sorry, I don't have what is were you either of you trainers?
Yeah. Bianca is a former teacher, elementary school teacher, and I'm currently coaching MMA for children and youth here as a jiu-jitsu black belt. So it's really impactful, everything that you've been saying, and it's amazing how our small contacts, our relations create ripples that we don't even know how far they expand. The ripples you created with Dave and all the youth he helped, and how he showed them kindness, and they paid that forth, I'm sure. And it's endless rippling. Let's use this to transition to another topic, and it's the importance of a mission. I know you know the importance of a mission from your time in the military, but also as a trainer. And as you've shown in your story, life has its ups and downs. It goes from here to here to here, all over the place, kind of like that pinwheel or that yarn you were talking to me before this recording. But having a mission can help serve as a North Star when we face terms of adversity or we get lost. So what would you say in this moment right here and now is your overarching mission that serves you all in all that you do, whether that be as a coach, as a citizen of the world, and as a son, as a friend? What is your overarching mission that guides you in all that you do?
Mm-hmm. I would say this is a very timely thing with the state of the world. And this is what the principles and values that have become increasingly important to me over the last 2 years, especially, is the principle of self-sovereignty. Now, being a master of your domain, not so much having to rely on others for the things that you need. So you can take that any which way we want. We can talk technology, we can talk fitness, we can talk relationships and family. I think it's important to stay connected to people. So it's not to say that you're an army of one, which used to be the army motto when I joined. It was army of one, which they always would twist in basic training. Like when you do something wrong and you do something that's different from the team, they would say, "Oh, you an army of one, huh?" Drill sergeant would come up to you, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying not needing to rely, being required to rely on others for all the things that you need in your life. So where I go with that next would be, well, one, physically, it's where we are right now with fitness. You're not reliant on anybody else. You can handle yourself. Let's just say, like, a good example, just easy example, like just being able to lift your carry-on bag up and put it on the overhead compartment. Okay, that's just a simple thing that somebody, male, female, older, younger, you need to be able to do to be able to handle yourself. Is like you don't need to be able to do it, but not everybody flies. But you know what I'm saying? This is something you want to have to be able to handle on your own and not have to rely on anybody else, just in case there's not somebody there to be there for you. And then, so okay, that's the fitness side of things.
Physical,
and then physical, and then on more of the, I would say, I'm trying to categorize this one, and this may lead into the next area. Let's say fiscal, financial, monetary, in that area where you're reliant. In this, like with my most recent thing with leaving anatomy, is like I'm at the whims of an employer. Now, luckily, they were great to us while like the shutdown happened. I still train clients. I actually train clients inside anatomy, like in the middle of COVID. So, it's supposed to like do that, or that was kind of on the DL type thing. But I think a lot of facilities did that. It wasn't like we were unique, but they looked out for us. But that could have easily not been the case. If I had worked for Equinox or another XYZ corporate gym, they would have been shut out, right? Like most trainers would have, the door's locked. You're not getting in. Now, could that trainer still have trained on the outside on their own? Yes, and that's what we did as well. I trained people in my backyard here, in their backyards, in their homes, wherever. But like, well, why can't I just do that all the time? And I at first was like, I don't want to be driving all over Miami and just constantly in traffic and this and that. But now I actually enjoy that. And if I was strategically setting it up to where I could move from place to place in a way that makes sense, and I'm not crossing my own path back and forth multiple times, it makes sense for me. So anyway, so bringing it back, self-sovereignty, being able to control my own destiny with my paycheck, how much I charge, how much I work. And I could do that anyways, like, right? You don't have to you're not beholden to training 12 hours a day at a gym, right? Like when you start as a new trainer, you're sort of expected to like work floor hours and stuff in the very beginning to be present. So I did that stuff. Like I did that. That was the extra that I was doing to really push myself. But like, in the end, I didn't feel pressure to do that and to be there all day. But at the same time, like I didn't feel like I could just come and go, even if I didn't really want to. Like the gym was far away from where I lived, but say I could. I don't like the feeling of like popping in, popping out, and like having people look at me like, where are you going? It's 9 a.m. Like what or it's 9 a.m. Why are you just walking in? Like
Yeah.
no one ever told me that, but I always felt I would feel that.
Yeah.
There. I just never put myself in the position to feel that. So now I can have a session 7 a.m., 8:30, 10, be done at 11, do whatever I want around that, come home, play with the dog, talk to my wife, go do a virtual session here and there from the dinner table or from here. And like, that's my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to just work as little as possible. That's not what I'm saying. But just having the freedom to do that was very powerful for me as I was like leaving that, leaving the place of being an employee. So do I ever see myself going back to being an employee? I mean, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
I've done interviews for other places and different roles, not as a trainer necessarily, but it's hard to wrap my head around that. Like how do I take, is that a step back?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess it depends on what's important to you. So for me, what's important to me with being my own, in charge of myself and sovereign and free in the way that I'm operating my life, I don't answer to anybody. So it's the entrepreneurial spirit. I wouldn't call myself super entrepreneurial, but I really value freedom for me and freedom in that way. And I say sovereignty, which is like a sovereign nation, right? A nation that's able to be autonomous within itself and not be beholden to another.
Mm-hmm. So we've examined self-sovereignty in terms of fitness, physicality, in terms of work. You also mentioned in terms of relationships and family. So what are the foundations to establishing sovereignty in your relationships and your family life?
Family, I don't think I've really thought of it that way with relationships specifically. I mean, I met my wife in college. We pretty much left the Illinois area where all of our family was right off the bat. So we were very sovereign to ourselves in Florida. We had nothing down here that I didn't know anybody at all. She definitely didn't know anybody. So it took us a while. We built our relationships here over the course of the last 2012, 10 years almost that we've been here. And I'm only child. My wife has one brother. None of us were really tied down to that. We're feeling like we needed to break free from anything. So in that sense, we were naturally free in that sense. In that area, in that specific area, I feel pretty free to do. I didn't I got to stay in Illinois because my family's there. That's a lot of people say, and that's why people don't get out of their situation a lot of times. Well, I understand. If you have kids, especially, you have kids in one place, and for whatever reason you can't just pull them out of that situation. Okay, I get that, but that didn't apply to us. So when you have the ability to, have you guys ever pulled up and left one place and gone in somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's there. Good.
So we both have. I'm curious to hear about the keys to your relationship with your wife. It's been 10 years now. So what have been the keys to that relationship and the evolution?
I think that the word that everyone will point to is communication. that's everything. We there was a period of time when I was working at Anatomy in the beginning, when I would be at work from my first session was 5 a.m. start, 4 times a week, like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And I wouldn't get done at that facility until I would have a 6 o'clock session. So I'd be done at 7 p.m. and I wouldn't leave because it was, like I said, far away from where I was living. It didn't make sense to go back and forth. So I wouldn't see my wife most days, and I'd go in on Saturdays, half a day, go in on Sunday, maybe for a couple hours. So there was a period of time when I was first starting at Anatomy where it was okay, I got to grind, I got to go. But also we started to drift a little bit. And it was we see each other at night, but then I'm on my phone doing the gram stuff, editing a video, or, she's exhausted from her commute. She was driving 50 minutes an hour to Fort Lauderdale for work in person, doing back when people used to commute. So it was tough in the beginning when we were living here, and we were long distance backtracking a little more, in Illinois, I was at school. She was already finished with school. So there was more distance. There was distance there in a different way. But I would say what's kept us together is we really want a family. We don't have any kids yet, but we're in pursuit of that. And we've been through some trials with that. But we're just both committed and we love each other. And we're looking forward to building a future together, continuing to build a future together. We got a great dog now. Now it's got to add some humans.
Amazing. The last area of self-sovereignty that I'd like to examine is in terms of technology and currency. And I'm alluding to your passion for crypto. Talk to us about that.
Yes. Okay. So this will start from the passing of my father in 2019. So he was a very sovereign individual. He left when my parents divorced in 2001. He left from Chicago shortly after, maybe 2003, moved to Idaho by himself. Lived there for a few months or a couple of years actually, and then he moved to Ogden, Utah. So just like down the road, you could say. And so he's way out there, and I'm still in Illinois at this point, and he's living his life. He worked on a bridge, made the bridges go like this and came down like this for 25 years in Illinois, in Chicago area. And so when you're doing that, if you've ever seen any of those jobs, you're one person. There's no like team there. It's just you're by yourself. And that was his job for 2.5 decades. And so he was cool being independent and by himself. So he was good out there. So he was living out there for a while. On my time at Anatomy, I'm living in Miami. He's in Utah. And I get a call, and it's from hospital. And they're like, oh, your dad's in this unit and this facility. And I was like, what facility is that? And it's like a hospice. So like, I don't even know he's sick. And I talked to the nurse actually a little bit longer, and she's like, oh yeah, we think he's got like a week left, week to live. I'm like, okay, hang up the phone. It's 10 p.m. on a Saturday, fly out to the Utah. Got the next day, Sunday, see him. There's nothing left. He's like, he could barely even blink his eyes. There's no communication, pretty much in a vegetative state. He's jaundiced, yellow, just not good. Very hard to be around. That was tough. Passed away the next morning on Monday. And so that, and I know he had cancer in like maybe 5 years, 6 years before that, got through it. I've seen him a bunch of times. He was at our wedding in 2017 in Miami. So he's moving around. He's moving. He's a functional guy. He'd go to the gym 6 days a week, grind it out. And that was his life. Gym, home. That was it. No dudes retired. So, well, okay, wrapping things up, like long story short, my dad was always a guy who valued guns and gold. And this is well before any of the turmoil of the last few years. He always liked that. And he would buy me, I would get these booklets of coins. And this is grade school, like early 90s, of these quarter series that the US Mint release, and these booklets. And like, this is cool. And I loved it at the time, but I'm like, looking back, I'm like, Dad, what are you buying all these quarters for? You're spending like hundreds of dollars on these proof minted, uncirculated, perfect condition quarters. So, and then graduated to like silver dollars and like these other coins. And anyway, so that, and then he started buying some gold and some platinum and these different precious metals later, closer to, the last 10, 15 years, maybe. And then acquiring guns too. Once he got out to Utah, he always wanted to like have an arsenal. Didn't shoot anything, just in a big safe, like 5 feet tall by 3 feet by 3, big safe full of guns. And he acquired them over a period of time. I think he shot maybe a few times on his own, but generally just acquiring, we'll say. And so we had that. So we stumbled upon that subsequent to his passing. I knew he had it. I knew it was there, but now it's like, it's mine now. Like, what do I do with this? Like, it's in this 800-pound safe that's in Utah that's full of all this stuff. And so this is getting my mind like going like, okay, like was he preparing for something? No, he's passionate about the things that hold value, because one's a protector and one's a storage of value. And they're both really storages of value. Gold just say, let's call it guns and gold. They both store value in different ways, but one thing is protects your personal sovereignty between individuals, and the other thing has a storage of value over the last 5,000 years that has only gone up, and it's generally looked at as a safe haven from financial disarray and those sorts of things. So I was like, okay, we sold this house, get the net proceeds from the house and some from other things. It's like, okay, now what am I going to do with this? Okay, what would my dad do? Not now, he would just buy more guns and gold, but what would he have done when he was in his 30s or something, like my age? Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at like, what do I see is going to have value going forward? I don't want to just put money in a 401k IRA, like, the growth stock mutual funds that put everybody to sleep when they listen to like personal investment podcasts. So which I actually listened to and it was like considering, but it's like, that's not me. That's not me. I'm a little less risk averse. I can like put myself out there a little bit, put something on the line. So like this crypto stuff, Bitcoin, Coinbase, like familiarizing myself with all these new terms that I had heard before, but I wasn't really familiar with. So did some self-education. This is mid 2019. You could look up the charts yourself and see where the prices were, but did some buying and selling and thought I was like, I thought I was like some kind of mover and shaker making trades, but definitely lost a lot of money that way. I lost money that way. I wouldn't say a lot, but enough to like learn from. And then, so then COVID's come shortly after this, is 2019 into 2020, COVID crash, everything goes down, market goes down 50%. That means crypto goes down 80%. Because it's super volatile. So if you're familiar with the space at all, you know that volatility is the name of the game and you have to be okay with it. So I didn't know how this worked. I didn't know like anything of the history. And so I started looking into more than just the price fluctuations and like the ups and the downs. Like, okay, why are people so interested in this thing? Like, what it's a Bitcoin? Like, why is it important? And that brought me back to self-sovereignty, is because this is a decentralized form of currency. It's really just a bunch of code. It's a software. It's really software running on a network, a worldwide network of nodes and miners. And not to get too in depth of like the weeds of what Bitcoin is, but it's a computer network that's secured by computer power, hashing power, they call it, and it's immutable. It can't be confiscated. It can't be, you can lose it. So I guess you can be destroyed in a certain way if you lose it, but you can't like physically take it from somebody unless you have the seed phrases, which is like something like known as like a password. They call it seed phrase, 12 or 24 words, could be stored in any which way. That you have to take that from somebody in order to confiscate it. Whereas you got cash, you got gold, you got bank accounts, those things can be seized. Those things can be restricted in certain ways to where if somebody that doesn't want you to do something, they want to shut down your life or ruin your life, they can do that. Well, Bitcoin was first started out as, the drug dealer money and the terrorist money, and it's still looked upon by some as that. But I'm looking at it as this is a savings technology. There's a finite number, and I can acquire it this way. So I started acquiring, and you learn what is a real coin, a digital asset that's worth holding, and you learn what's a shit coin, because there's lots of shit coins out there. There's always the latest shit coin on the news that's like crashing or popping, going to the moon, that somebody's talking about a Shiba or a Doge or whatever else, and just separating the real from the phony and the like those like the fraud, the things that are more wrought with fraud, and being able to tell the difference. And yeah, so I would say my dad brought me down that path. He helped me, even after he passed, he helped me know what's important, and like just the theme of the things I've been saying, self-sovereignty, that fell into that category for me. And that's kind of where I am today. And like I mentioned, we mentioned before we started, Divi Wallet, the Divi project is cryptocurrency, and it's a Divi Labs is the company behind it, but it's a blockchain based digital wallet. So it's mobile, based on the mobile, on an Apple or iPhone or Android, and it's fully secured through its network. And I've been involved with those guys just on not in an official capacity, but been heavy into the community since 2019, and just been following their progress and the tech along the way, and the ups and the downs. There's been plenty of them, and here we are in 2022. It's, I don't want to talk too much more about like crypto market conditions, but if anybody's aware of what's going on right now, it's just kind of a downtime for whether it's a stock or interest rates going up, equities going down, crypto follows suit. So it's an interesting world out there right now.
So in your 3 years since you dove into cryptocurrency, 2019, or maybe that's 4 years, what have been some key lessons that you've learned that you'd like to share with the listeners? Maybe some that are new into the world, maybe some experience. But what are some key takeaways that you learned in those 4 years that you'd like to share?
For sure. I would say number one would be to understand and believe in anything that you're looking into fully. Like DYOR is the acronym. You do your own research, and anything that you hear about. Like, the biggest mistake you can make is hearing your friends talk about something and then just blindly buying into it because they said so. Okay, it's one thing if you put like $20 or $100 maybe into something just to like test the waters and just get into it. But it's another thing to really commit real funds to it and then follow that over the course of months and years, because you're gonna lose half your money at some point. It just happens. Like, unless you time the bottom perfectly, and you're a technical trader and you're like, knowing all the charts and these the way that it ebbs and flows throughout market cycles, like, you're gonna be down 50% or probably closer to 80% at some point. So you have to understand the underlying value. Is there underlying value, one, or is it just this like coin that's being printed out of thin air? I'm not speaking of Bitcoin, but another one of these altcoins that's being printed out of thin air, and there's this hype surrounding it. And there's no actual, I would say, like, substance to it. There's no utility, as they call it, utility. Like, it doesn't do anything. So I would say like more than half the market falls into that category. So it's really more so it's a pursuit of the education. I listen to so many podcasts not related to fit. I only listen to non-fitness related podcasts at this point, because it is such an interesting, like, the body is great. The body is very interesting. I've learned so much, and there's more to learn, but I don't listen to fitness podcasts anymore because it's generally saying the same thing over and over again. I've been so into Peter McCormick's What Bitcoin Did, the Pomp podcast of the top two in the space right now. I have no affiliation with either of them, but I met Peter at the Bitcoin conference here in Miami over the summer, or in the spring. But like, there's just so much, and it explores the world. It's not just like about finance. It's not about just making number go up. So it's like kind of thing like NGU, number go up technology. Like, it kind of does that over time, but it's about the principles behind why someone initially, early on especially, would hold Bitcoin. Is because there's no bank that's going to try to seize that from you, because they can't. No country that's going to ban it from you, because they really can't. It's a network that's outside of the traditional financial rails that the world functions on, with the SWIFT system and banking and central banking that we all hear about on CNBC. So once you discover that wait, like, no one can mess with this. You can't really do, if you're doing it right. Your money on Coinbase is not doing it right. Okay, you can get it that way. You can get the initial dip the toe in the water that way, but to store it properly on a proper wallet, whether it's Divi Wallet or whether there's a dozen or 100 other wallets out there, to store it properly, no one can touch you. Like, a country can't ban it. China has banned Bitcoin at least 12 times in the last 10 years. And they keep banning it and unbanning it because, honestly, my conspiratorial side of me is saying that they ban it because the price drops and they buy a little bit, and then the price goes up and then they unban it. And then this like market manipulation. So, and that's not just unique to me. There's many people that feel that way. But China's a very powerful country, and they've banned mining. They banned it specifically. That's the most recent one in 2020. They banned mining, Bitcoin mining. So all the miners that were shored up in Shanghai and Beijing, they go to El Salvador, they go to Iceland, or a lot of northern countries, or a lot in Canada too, because the temperatures are favorable, because it does create lots of heat and those sorts of things. So it's easier to keep the miners cool. Tangents all over the place. But so coming back, yeah, you can't touch it. You can't touch it. So I don't want to dig too much more deeply into that, unless you want to ask follow-up questions. So I'm more than happy to like explore more. Than I love talking about it. It's so interesting to me.
Bianca is big into crypto herself, so I'd love to hear some of her questions that have arisen from that conversation about Bitcoin.
Well, I've been learning about it as well. I think that this kind of aligns with what I've been learning. There's definitely the big thing about volatility and learning how to invest in projects that do have utility. I think those are the main keys. And for people who are actually curious, I guess, to just figure out the entry point, to know like when to invest and where. But I don't have specific questions because I don't know enough about it personally.
You want me to? Can I say one thing about what you just said?
Of course.
You said the term. You said when to time the market, and I will say more important than timing the market, ing, is time in the market. That's and I mean, speaking about Bitcoin, this is like any investment really, but specifically because of the volatility.
Yes.
It's so important just to have time in the market, because now that and I'm sure if you're involved, you felt what it's like to go through these swings of like the ups and the downs. And I look forward to the times, almost look forward more so when the price goes down than when the price goes up, because I guess I don't want to buy when it's popping off and my the Uber driver's talking about some coin. Like that's usually the tops. That's what the exuberance and the emotions come out, and all these people come out of the woodwork that have no idea what anything is about, but they've been convinced by friends and by people that they come across that something's a good investment, which is almost always a top signal. And sorry to keep going. I'm like trying to sound like I'm like some kind of technical analyst, and I'm not like a crypto analyst at all. But just these last 3 years have been so educational for me, and just like the human psychology too, just how the mind works, like being emotion based in your fitness, in your finance, in your politics never serves, never ever serves. It always hurts eventually at some point. So having some sort of system. I'm no trader, so I don't have like a trading system, but when the price goes down, like it's my opportunity. Okay, pick up a few $1,000 in Bitcoin, $1,000 in Divi, because things are going down. They're bashing it on CNBC. They're talking, is Bitcoin dead for the 20th time? Like, okay, guys, like if you've only been watching the TV for a few months, then you would think that, oh my God, I got to sell all my Bitcoin because I might be dead. But like, that's not reality if you're paying attention. Just most aren't, because they got life to deal with. And I guess I just don't have that much to do anymore. I'm just paying attention to crypto, and I lift weights every once in a while and swing a mace.
Well, and you shared so much wisdom in this conversation. We're so grateful for all that you shared. And this brings us to our final couple of questions that we like to ask every guest. And the first one is, through all the highs and lows that is this life experience, what would you say has been the greatest life lesson that you've learned on your path that you feel called to share with us right here and now?
I gotta go so deep. Why can't you just ask me like, do I believe in aliens or something? My greatest life lesson, man. I would say I was going to point back to one thing I said earlier on when I was interviewing new or potential new trainers for Anatomy is commitment over talent every day, every time. Because somebody that can mentally commit and put all of their being into a pursuit is going to be so much more valuable to an employer. And this is me speaking like, okay, I'm talking to people that are trying to get a job. That's one thing. Okay. Not everyone's trying to just get a job with an employer doing an interview, but in general, commitment to something and being able to go 100% into it is so necessary to excel at it, because you can't go half. Dude, like, how many people do you know that like sort of dip their toe into something and just continued to go like half-assed into it and became really successful? Like, it just doesn't work that way. So maybe it's cliche to say like diving head first in, but there is no other way. You got to do extra if you want to be extraordinary. And thanks, Mark Magna, for that one again. It's just so necessary. So that's really it. That's because I thought that I could do that in certain times of my life. I thought that I could go because I am blessed with certain genetics that allow me to do bodybuilding. When I did it back when I was in my early mid-20s, it was kind of easier for me to be lean. Like, some people really fucking struggled with that. Like, some people have to diet for 16 weeks to just get the six pack to show a little bit. I never had that problem. Like, I just didn't. So that led to me, since I didn't commit to it, led to me self-sabotaging over the course of my cutting, like leading up to these shows. I did 4 bodybuilding shows in 2011 to 12 over that time. And I remember this, I'll regret it forever. And then people say no regrets, but I do fucking regret this. Like, I was in my final week before a show, my last one I was ever going to do. I didn't know that, but I went to Vegas and I got hammered, and I just drank the whole time. I was like 8 days out from a bodybuilding show, and I was there for a friend's thing, and I just didn't commit fully to sticking to what I was supposed to do. And I got second in the show. So good. I'm glad I got second, because if I got first, then there wouldn't have been any lesson learned there. Because I felt really good. I felt really strong, and I felt really in the right place. And then I threw it all away.
It's all learning.
And I learned from it. So there's a positive, but I regret being that, like, maybe conceited or just like non-committal. It was just not a good decision. So, I wasn't trying to be a pro bodybuilder. I was doing it because it was fun and it was like a new thing, and I was learning a lot from it. But yeah, you go to the craps table at the Bellagio from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. and you drink like 15 Baileys and coffees. Like, that's not going to be good for your physique. Just like, literally that like it was obvious too. Like, I have pictures. Like, I literally saw the alcohol between my midsection. Like, it was pushing itself out, because it was just such a reckless thing to do. But like I said, I learned from it, and it's a net positive in the end. But at the time, it was a very dumb thing. So I would say committing to something fully. Like, I went half-assed because I thought I had it, and I thought I was like, I'm good at this. I don't really need help. I can do it my way, and it doesn't work that way.
That's such a great wisdom that you shared. Commitment. In the words of fellow Floridian Jorge Masvidal, super necessary.
Nice. I did not know that he had those words, but I do respect that guy. He works hard, that's for sure. He's a legend.
The next question, in 3 words, how would you describe the experience you were having in this reality, on this earth? 3 words.
4 words.
They don't have to go together. They could be like free. For example, it could be freedom. It could be passion. They just read.
Oh, I got you. I got you. It doesn't have to be like a phrase. Okay.
No.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you think you saw it in my Instagram bio. I mean, freedom is such a cliche word, but it is. I think that's why it's important to repeat it, is because you can say something so much that it almost loses meaning after a while. Like, freedom. Oh, we're grateful for our freedom. We support the troops and freedom. This, like, what does it actually mean to you? Like, no one's trying to take your freedom away when you just walk down the street and do something, generally, right? And like, we're in these countries that we live in US and Canada, it's like we don't have to worry about that. But that's not how it naturally is. The natural state of the world is not that. So I would say that would be for sure number one for me. Freedom, and then this one's kind of cliche, fitness is strength, because, and then not in the physical way. And so I want to talk about strength as more of an endurance, being able to endure through something, through having the strength to push through tough moments, because those are what make you, you have, whether it's somebody passing away, or whether it's losing at something, or being disappointed in someone, relationship issues, like having that strength to push through, this is going to get you on the other side, and to push you further than you ever could have believed that you could have done before that. So freedom, strength, and mobility. Another fitness one, but not fitness. Mobility as in get out there. See what else is in the world. I was in the end of my schooling at Illinois State, and I knew that I needed to leave Illinois. I had 4 options for internships. I had local Bloomington Normal, which is the Twin City area around school. I had Chicago, I had Las Vegas, and I had Miami. And I was like, right away, okay, Bloomington Normal's out. Okay, Chicago, great, but like, okay, it's not really gonna be that much different. And like, cool to live in the city with all the friends they just left college, and now I'm gonna go hang out with them. There's more mediocrity, just living the same life. So, okay, it's either Vegas or Miami. Miami had the 5-star NFL athletes that are training at this cool facility that I wanted to pursue. That Mark Magna guy used to work at. He's so cool too. I want to be like Mark. So I had that pulled me to it. So yeah, I would say more than anything else that our freedom, our strength, and then mobility. You got to be able to move. There's certain circumstances in life, that's like I mentioned before, that may prevent you from doing exactly what you want to do and where you want to do it, but you commit to it and you make it happen, and it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good year and a good life. Eventually, at some point, things get better.
Absolutely. Strength, freedom, and mobility. What a life that you live. The final question. We've spent a lot of time examining your past, your story that got you here, now, today. Let's take a look in the future. Let's fast forward ourselves into the long future, and we're going to be alongside an 85-year-old Grant Weeditz. Where are you? Who are you? What is the legacy that you've left behind?
And well, first of all, I've had a double hip replacement surgery, so there's no pain in my hips whatsoever. We even talk about that, but like my hips kill me right now for sitting. But so the technology in this world of what year would it be? I don't know, 2070 is amazing, and I got this amazing hip replacement surgery that makes me feel like I'm 25 years old again. So I don't know. So what was the question again? My 85-year-old self is gonna.
Yeah. Who are you? Where are you? And what is the legacy? What is the impact that you've left on this world?
Yes. Well, I'm definitely still very active, just like my dad was up into the end. I think that more than anything, and this is somewhat cliche nowadays, even in fitness, is that you just can't stop moving. You can't stop moving ever. This life of, living at a desk and a chair and in front of a screen, it's not sustainable. And I think we all know this, and maybe the metaverse changes that in 5 years. Who knows? Maybe we'll have the goggles on and we're all like high-fiving each other from across the world, like with NFTs and being exchanged and Bitcoin just flying across the sky. Like that could be the world that we live in. But it's really hard to project out that far. But one, I hope I feel really good physically. I'm confident that I will, from my own pursuits and as well as the help from technology. 2, I hope to have a big family. I'd like to have a lot of kids over the course, whether, maybe we have some of our own, maybe it ends up being adoption, whatever. I'd like to leave a legacy, like having something left behind, positive footprint of my past and my values in terms of like having kids that share those values, and like what I've done in my past, and they continue that on. That would be powerful, like to have at that point have the grandkids and maybe more. But yeah, that's what it's all about. That's all. There's plenty of people out there that don't have any desire to have children. That's not important to them. But I think that's what all this is about. That's why we're here. We're here to pass it on. And if there's no one to pass it on to, it's not a failure by any means. I have family members that are older in their 50s and 60s and don't have kids. But the fulfillment, it's just not the same. It's just not. So there has to be either offspring to pass it on to, or something in its place to pass it on to. And for me, I haven't yet just discovered that thing yet. I don't know, but just looking at it right now, I really want to start a family with, begin the process right now. So that's where I see myself: healthy, moving, feeling good, Bitcoin flying across the sky, and big family.
Beautiful. And I just want you to stay with this 85-year-old Grant for one moment longer. I want you to feel into his heart. And I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back into this current day, 2022. And that 85-year-old Grant, he sends back with you a message. What does he whisper in your ear?
Have faith. Have faith. Because we didn't get into it too deep, but, faith is tested with some of the things with, with myself and my wife, and just trying to have kids, and had some miscarriages and things along the way that just tests you, like why is this happening. It's funny, people that just cough and they have kids, and just didn't work that way for us for a handful of times. So to have faith, that's it. And I do right now. So it's helpful that I've had people around me, and my wife has had people around in her life that have been very supportive too. But it's still trying and still hard, and many at times to look and you see your friends and they have their kids and they're living their lives and their kids are growing up. It's like, you feel like it's passing you by, right? So I feel ready for that, but I feel like I have faith. I do have faith. Things will work out.
It's all happening for you. It's all happening for us if we allow ourselves to see. Aho. Bianca, closing words for this conversation from you.
I'm just going to take the opportunity to reflect a little bit of what you have been offering us over the past hour and something, because you showing up today, for me, I'm grateful to be holding space as you're sharing this story, but as a recipient and a receiver of your message, you really embody what you stand for, the commitment. It reminds me of a Shaolin quote about the only mistakes on your way to mastery is to not start and to not go to the finish line. And I think you show how you've practiced this kind of mindset just with keeping your focus and taking those leaps of faith throughout your journey. So thank you for doing the work, for showing us the value in keeping the practice going.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So thanks for showing up.
Of course. No,
and for anyone wanting to, yeah, go ahead.
I would say it's powerful to share that, because I don't sit in my life and monologue to myself about things. I don't have a podcast myself. I've spoken this way to others over the course of a few years, other interviews, but it's helpful. It's very helpful for me to verbalize it and to say it. It's like writing down goals, right? When you write down goals, it's that much more likely to become reality, because you're one step closer to you've written it. It's one step closer. And it's another version of that, where verbalizing it really helps me. So thank you guys for giving me this opportunity.
Awesome.
Abracadabra. With our words we create.
Can I show you one more thing? It's right behind me, actually. I don't know if you noticed it. You know what this is?
What is that?
I can tell from far away. I'm not. There you go. You probably saw. Okay, you saw the big words at the top. So this is the Declaration of Independence. So this is kind of the overarching theme to our commentary, or my commentary today, is declare your independence. You don't have to be free from someone specific. It doesn't have to be a negative thing necessarily, but just break free from something that's holding you back. And I'm not like a preachy type of person, but like this is something that is really important. I find is important to me, and it's become more important over the course of time. And maybe it's not to you yet, or you don't really see it as clearly. But once you give yourself the opportunity to be free, there's no looking back.
Hell yeah. Hell
Mhm.
yeah to that. I agree. We are free. We are free. We are free. I am free. So to close, send everyone that wants to connect with you. They can find you on your website, Weeditz, GRANTWEEDITZ.com, or on Instagram at WeDiddy. Let's bring our fist in for freedom and celebration.
Love it. Thank
It's
you,
been a
guys.
blessing.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Grant.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys.
Take
Bye.
care.
You too.